deal with included cell phone bills at the end of each month basically know nothing of some of the things that are being taken off of their cell phones. One should examine their contracts before signing. Provider include pricey mobile bills that leave consumers confused at the end of every month. One of the consumers' rights is to be informed at all times, and joining us from our Pretoria studios is Ebrahim Mohamed from the National Consumer Commission to discuss cell phone contract guidelines. Ebrahim, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us here on the program.
Thank you for having me on your show, and good morning to all the viewers.
Ebrahim, how does one carefully examine their phone contract? What should you look out for?
Leanne, the first thing that I would like to say is that cell phone contracts are, by most accounts, are now Consumer Protection Act compliant, which means that the cell phone companies have looked at their contracts and they've brought it into line with the provisions of the Consumer Protection Act. Now, that having been said, it means that the terms and conditions in the contracts are therefore lawful, and consumers need to take much care when they actually read their contracts. They need to look at the terms and the length of their contracts. They need to look particularly at the data costs. You know, you get these new smartphones that have automatic download features and so on, and all that costs a lot of money. Now, consumers need to carefully examine their own contracts to determine what it is that they are paying for at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Now, they should look at their packages. They should carefully look at additional contract maintenance costs provisions, the costs of their handsets, and so on.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true. I mean, data is possibly the most expensive part of your cell phone bill these days. So we talk about data and roaming. Now, there's another issue as well when it comes to many people being taken by surprise when they suddenly get their cell phone bills and they say that they weren't aware that the charges were so high. Do you, as a consumer, have any rights, or is that something you should look at as a consumer when A, you're signing the contract, and B, when you perhaps are embarking on a trip?
Yeah, Leanne, I'll give you an example that I myself had. I've got this open roaming on my phone, and which means that I do not have to contact the cell phone companies before I go overseas to ask them to add roaming to my phone to activate it. So what happened is I went overseas, and I therefore took all the precautions to ensure that I do not get charged for unnecessary roaming.
Yeah.
When I returned, I received this massive bill, and what had happened is I had done everything with regards to the roaming, but I did not switch off or shut off the data roaming aspect.
Yeah.
Of the package, and that then increased my bill by about 1,500 rand. I took this to the cell phone company, to the service provider, and I said, look, I made all the arrangements, I took all the care, and yet this is the end result. And they said, yes, but you didn't ask for the data roaming to be switched off. So I said, but had I known, had somebody informed me that this was going to be the case, I would have done so. And they did, at the end of the day, reverse all the costs. But these are the things that consumers must look out for, and must always make sure that all this is covered before they travel or before they enter into the contract.
So you in a way answered my question. I mean, there is room for negotiation with the cell phone providers, and they are open to your vulnerability, because we really are. I mean, it's one setting on a phone that could cost you. You were lucky, only 1,500. I have heard stories of children, playing on iPads overseas or doing something, and parents were unaware. I mean, where their cell phone bills were going up to the tens of thousands of rands. So it really can hurt you as a consumer.
No, that is absolutely correct. And if consumers do have these kinds of issues, they can always contact the Commission, and we would see what we can do to assist. But there is no guarantee that these amounts will be reversed and so on.
Yeah.
But the Commission can see what it can do. The point is that the companies are acting lawfully, they're not acting unlawfully.
Yeah, so they're not acting unlawfully. In terms of terminating contracts with cell phone providers, because that's also a very sticky and contentious issue. If you're not getting the service that you're happy with, and we do sign ourselves into, I think, what is it, a 2-year contract with most cell phone operators? I'm actually not 100% sure. Can you get out of it at any time, or is that's it? You're obliged to stay for 2 years?
No. Well, firstly, all fixed-term contracts cannot be longer than 24 months unless it is with the express approval of the express approval of the consumer, and that the supplier should actually be able to demonstrate that it would benefit the consumer financially. That's number one. Number two is, yes, consumers may cancel contracts within the 24-month period by giving 20 days notice. Now, the 20 days notice can be given at any time during the period of the contract for the 24 months. But the proviso is that the service provider may charge a cancellation fee or cancellation penalty.
All right. Well, there you go. Ebrahim, thank you very much. I think you've given us a lot of food for thought here this morning. Ebrahim Mohamed from the National Consumer, that's the National Consumers Commission here on the program. Just before I let you go, what is your website address? Because I'm sure there's other issues people would like to get hold of you for. The website address for your commission?
www.nccsa.org.za.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you again. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
There's some information for you with regard to cell phones and contracts and everything pretty much so pertaining to that. So I think the most important thing is, if you are planning a trip, if you are going overseas, if you are signing up for your contracts, really ask questions. Don't think that you may have done it all right. Ask all the questions that you can before putting your name on the dotted line and before taking that cell phone of yours that can be possibly the most costly part of your entire trip, that little thing in your pocket, and you don't even know about it. So please let us know if it has in fact happened to you, if you have had experiences, especially when it comes to cell phones and those charges that are astronomical sometimes. All right, let's take